First of all, I would like to congratulate to the students of the class 2019 for finishing their O-level examination. So at this juncture, when you receive your results in 2020, you'll be deciding whether you are going to junior college or do you want to pursue further studies at Polytechnic. So in this video, I will just do some personal sharing based on my experiences in these two institutions, and I will list down some of the key considerations you need before you make your choice. First of all, allow me to do a quick introduction of myself. I'm Mr. Ang, and I've been teaching in Singapore for more than 10 years. I have taught as a full-time staff both in junior college and also in Polytechnic. So there are not many teachers out there in Singapore that have taught in both places, so I thought I'm in a good position to share with you some observations that I've made during my stay in either institution, whether or what is a more suitable place for you or your child. Now, I specialize in mathematics, so I teach A-level math. I also teach mathematics for Polytechnic Diplomas. And in my future video, I'll also be sharing, let's say, should you choose to go to the junior college, there are different types of mathematics subjects out there, like H1, H2, H2 further maths. So which one will be the choice for you? That one will be at a separate video. So for this video, we will just focus on, in general, should you be going through the A-level track or should you go through the diploma track? So the first thing we have to take into consideration would be what are the subjects that either the A-level track has to offer or the Polytechnic track has to offer. So let us look at the A-level track first. Like basically in a JC, right? The main objective is to prepare students to qualify for university courses. That's why in the past, we may also call them the pre-Us. So our objective, right, in the JC track is to groom scholars, academic scholars, which means that the subjects that they're going to study are more theoretical in nature. So the subjects offered are slightly broader because the students at the A-level stage, they have not really specialized in a very particular field. So they study maybe, let's say, 3 or 4 main subjects before when they go to uni next time, then they choose that single field of specialization. So the subjects offered are slightly broader and more general in nature, right? And the mode of assessment most of the time will be through written exam or maybe a little practical. That one will be more like for the sciences, or maybe let's say if you choose to take arts as an A-level subject, you may need to do some art piece, with the exception of project work. So project work, the main assessment will be written report and also presentation. But most of the other subjects, the mode of assessment is still written examination. Now, what about at the poly side? The main objective of Polytechnic education is to prepare students for future work. That's why when students enter Polytechnic, they do need to have in mind a particular area they want to specialize in. So for example, they will need to decide, are they going to specialize in, let's say, business administration, digital media, or engineering. So Polytechnic, the focus is to equip students the specific skills they need in their future career. Now, even though nowadays there are still many, or should I say there are more and more Polytechnic students continuing studies in university. However, that does not change the core purpose of Polytechnic education, because not many Polytechnic students are eventually going to further studies. A lot of them will end up in the workforce upon graduation. So we are talking about skills. Hence, the assessment in Polytechnic is a mixture. You have some written exam, and you have a lot of projects, you have a lot of practical aspects. Let's say if you're in the field of engineering, there'll be a lot of practicals you need to do, a lot of things you have to build, and you have some projects for different modules. You have to give presentation, etc. So you can see the assessment is kind of different from the JC. JC is mainly written, whereas at Polytechnic is a variety. So probably the first question that you or your child should ask yourself is, have you decided what you want to do in the future? Do you have a clear idea which field you are going to venture into? If yes, personally I think Polytechnic will be a good choice. If no, then you might want to go to the JC track, whereby you'll still be studying like some general topics. You will not be asked to really specialize in a particular field yet before you proceed to university. So in some sense, you can still make your choice after your A levels. Then the second question would be the characteristic of the student. Is a student more academic in nature? That means it's very good in reading, written exam, or is a student skillful in terms of hands-on stuff? Because JC end of the day is a lot of lectures, tutorials, reading. So if this student is more keen on building items, hands-on, he or she may not be suitable for the JC track. The next thing we have to take into consideration would be the kind of assessment that a student need to face, whether he chooses the A-level track or the Polytechnic track. So let's look at the A-level track first. Like I mentioned in the earlier slide, written exam is a major component for many subjects, with the exception of project work. But even so, project work is studied as a subject on its own and not really infused into the other subjects. And for national exams, basically you have that only one chance to prove yourself. So for example, you may be performing well in school, getting your A's, but somehow during A level, you are not on form, and then you fumble your examination. And that's it. Whatever grade you are going to get depends solely on that single sitting you have at the end of 2 years. And this makes A level quite stressful in the sense that everything you have learned in the past 2 years, you are going to be tested all at one go, and you have that only one chance. It might be good news for people who are slightly more last minute, because they may not do well for internal exams. However, subsequently, if they just try their luck and they make it for the A-level exam, that will be the grade they will have in their certification. Now, whereas for Polytechnic side, like I mentioned in the earlier slide, the assessment is a variety. You can have projects, you have presentations, you have written exams, you have internship, etc. So there are many different modes of assessment. And the assessment or your grade in your certification depends on what they call the GPA, and it's the accumulation of all the modules you take in your, let's say, 3-year course. So the key thing to do well in Polytechnic is consistency. You cannot say, oh, I'm going to study very hard and I will try to score all the A's in year 3. But your year 1 and year 2 modules all will contribute equally to your final GPA. So you need to perform right at the start and need to maintain your high standard until you finish your course. So that's the stressful part about Polytechnic course, is that you cannot depend on last minute preparation. You need to be consistent throughout. Then we will also need to look at the kind of certification you receive upon graduation. So for the A-level side, the student will be awarded the Cambridge A-level certification, which is an internationally widely recognized certification. And particularly for Singapore, because Singapore's A-level standard is actually significantly higher than the international version of the Cambridge A-level. So if you can score A for Singapore A-level, it says a lot about your capability. And then because it's a nationwide examination, So in a sense that it's a very fair examination, everyone take the same assessment, and that's why it's very valuable in applying to universities, especially local university, because it's very easy for the universities to do comparison between the abilities of different students because everyone set for the same thing. Now for Polytechnic Diploma, well, internationally it's also recognized, but I would say it's not as widely recognized as the Cambridge certification. Based on my experience, I have students who want to apply overseas universities. So the universities actually require the Polytechnic to submit things like our own internal school examination papers, so that they can gauge, where's our standard. And the grading is done internally, so it's a bit hard to do comparison across schools. Let's say, for example, if your math module, this student get A in Singapore Polytechnic, and another student from Nanyang Polytechnic also got A for the math module. It's not so easy to tell are they of equal standard or not, because the test papers are internal. The test papers may be of very different standard. So maybe one poly A grade may not be a A grade in another poly. Okay, that's why it's not as widely recognized as Cambridge A level, and that's a reason why when it comes to university application, right? Even though times has changed, but I will still say the Polytechnic students might still be at a slight disadvantage. Okay, all these are based on my personal observation. I'm not quoting any results from any sources. However, so the value in the Polytechnic Diploma is more in terms of finding jobs. Remember what I said, Polytechnic education, the key focus is in skill. And this is something that the A-level students cannot fulfill. Let's say I need someone to take on the job of an electrical engineer. Well, I think the A-level students probably they don't know what's going on because they never really learn how to handle such systems. Whereas for a diploma student, they are trained specially for this job. Now, apart from the courses, the assessment, we may also want to take a look at the culture of government schools, the A levels, and the polytechnics, which are stat boards basically. Now, let's look at the A level side. So in JC, remember, end of the day, they are still uniform institution, meaning there is still a strict system of discipline to be enforced. So in terms of a haircut, your attire, you will have to follow the school rules, whether you like it or not. Now, whereas for Polytechnic, basically, even though they may say that they have some rules about attires, but from my personal experience, the students can dress in any way they want, as long as it's not too revealing or too vulgar. Right, so basically for Polytechnic, you can see a wide variety of fashion in the dressings of the students. Furthermore, Polytechnic students, they are officially allowed to skip lessons. Let's say they are allowed to skip up to 20% of their lessons before punishment is enforced. So in some sense, the level of discipline at a polytechnic is much lower than in a junior college. So for a student to survive really well in polytechnic, what they require is the self-discipline, because the lecturers are not going to chase after them, say, oh, you must do your homework, you must get a haircut, etc. Unlike in JC, in JC, if the student hair is long, even he doesn't want to cut, the school will make sure the student cuts it. So the next question that the student or the parent may want to ask is, how much self-discipline does the student has? If the student is very self-disciplined, then I guess he can pretty much survive very well, either in JC side or in Polytechnic side. However, if the student is easily swayed by peer pressure, honestly speaking, this is my personal opinion that this student may be at a certain risk if he choose the Polytechnic side, because like I said, the staff are not really going to look after the student closely. They only meet for lessons, and after that, that's it. So if your student is easily influenced negatively by other peers, then this student might be at risk, like skipping lessons, or sometimes, in between lessons, you just go along polytechnics, you can see along the near the roads, beside the bus stops, a pool of them there smoking. It's a very common sight. So this is the question that the parents in particular have to ask themselves. How safe will their children be, either in the poly side or the JC side? Now, the next thing to take into consideration is, should the student wants to further study, let's say the end goal in mind is to complete university education. So what are the chances of entering university if I go through the A-level track versus the poly track? Okay, so I have some extracts from the newspaper reports that even though recently the proportion of university students graduating from polytechnic has increased, but they say now it's around 34%, around 1/3. But the fact remains that 2/3 of the undergraduates graduated from the A-level track. So over the years, you can see that there are more and more universities being set up, like SIT. In the past, it's Unisim. Now they become SPSS. The main purpose of setting up more universities, especially for SIT, is to specifically cater to the polytechnic students. That's why at the beginning, SIT, they have the campus set up at different branches, all situated inside the polytechnic. So the courses they offer, most of them are overseas certification, and the courses they offer has a direct link to the polytechnic courses. So if you are not sure whether you want to go through the JC track or the poly track, you want to take these figures into consideration. What are your chances going to university? You will choose the JC or the polytechnic. Now, based on personal experience, let's say if you choose to go through the A level, what are your chances into enrolling into, let's say, a decent? Of course, I'm talking about, like a general course. I'm not talking about those elite courses like dentistry, medical courses, etc. Just general courses. In fact, getting a mixture of B's and C's is actually sufficient. Okay, and take note, to get B's and C's, you don't really need to be in the top percentiles, because certain subjects like mathematics, right, the past record of people having A's is almost 50%. So the moment you get B's or C's, you're actually below average. But don't worry, because a mixture of B's and C's, my past students, they still manage to get into pretty good courses in universities, and they are doing pretty well now. Well, for polytechnic, especially if you're looking into enrollment into the, let's say, NUS, NTU, SMU, whereby most of the vacancies are catered to the JC students, then you really need to have a very good GPA. That means upon 4, you need to get at least 3.6 and above in order to enroll. Because they need to make sure that the polytechnic students they accept are really of high caliber. And it's very hard for them to really gauge, what's the standard of the student, because like I said earlier on, the polytechnic assessment is all internal. Unlike the national exam A level, whereby it's fair for everyone, the moment you get a certain grade, you can have a very clear idea what's the standard of the student. Because of the limited vacancies, that's why competition for polytechnic students is going to be tougher. That's why you need to have a higher GPA. Of course, one of the very practical consideration to have is the cost of studying in a government school, let's say JC, and a polytechnic. So you can see the figures here. This is taken from moneysmart.sg for the year 2019. You can see the big difference in the cost. For junior college, yearly fee is only 200 plus. These are so-called the maintenance fee, whereas for polytechnic is more than 10 times more. So you really got to see your budget, whether you can afford your student to go through the polytechnic course, or the family financial status might be more comfortable if the student go through the JC course. So of course, why Polytechnic students have to pay more even after subsidy is because of the facilities. You get very big campus, you get very nice campus, you know, you get the high-end laboratories to work with. All these need money, and the students got to pay for them. Whereas for junior college, the facilities are kind of more of basic, tutorial rooms, lecture theaters, and maybe some science labs. That's all. Now, you may also want to consider what are some of the opportunities that a student may have. When I talk about opportunity, I'm talking about non-academic opportunities. So both tracks will offer overseas trip, but based on personal experience, Polytechnic actually offers a lot more overseas trip compared to JC. Main reason is because funding. Polytechnic, because they are collecting much more school fees, and they have external funds from other sources, so they can afford to organize more overseas trip. And you're looking, or the next thing that we have to consider is the internship. Some schools, they do offer internship for their students, but it's really, really limited, probably to the better performing students. But for Polytechnic, internship is very common. In fact, the target is to have everyone enrolled for internship, as part of their year 2 or year 3 curriculum. So if you are looking at exposure students to the outside world, um, definitely Polytechnic has the edge over here. Okay, thank you very much. This is pretty much a summary of what I have to share on what are things you have to consider whether you want to choose the A-level track or you want to choose the Polytechnic track. Now, I'll be sharing more videos. So the next video that I'm working on is, should you choose the JC track? What do you need to know about A-level mathematics? Now, if you're interested to look at my future videos, you may want to like my Facebook page over here so that whenever I have a new update, you'll be the first one to be notified. You can also follow my Instagram account. You can either type SG Math Tutor or Math Consultant SG. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you in my future videos.